Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. And I swear, it's morning. It's just a very dark and dismal day, very rainy day here in New York City. So August, we're still in this no news zone, but we're starting to see a couple studios take advantage of that and get some headlines. And one of them is Disney, which apparently tweeted yesterday that very soon at Disneyland you will be able to visit Asgard, to celebrate Thor: The Dark World opening. And the big thing is you will be able to come face to face, they say, with the God of Thunder, aka Thor. Also, by the way, if you are a small child and you enjoy character meet and greets and you feel that you are meeting the real character, you might want to fast forward a little bit because we're about to have a frank discussion about meet and greets. Okay, so everybody left. This brings up an interesting problem. How do you do a character meet and greet based on a live action film? It's hard to do because when you have an animated movie, you can easily just dress somebody up or have a costume, and it works out great. But when you have a live action character, you might be, obviously you're going to be an adult or a savvy kid, and you're going to be like, you know what, that's not Chris Hemsworth. Disney has found a little bit of a way around it with Pirates of the Caribbean. And first what they did was they hired some excellent Jack Sparrow impersonators. I guess the character that Johnny Depp has created is such a caricature and so over the top that it has so much makeup and such a heavy costume to it that when you get the right dreads and you get the eye makeup, you can get a really good approximation. I've seen some excellent impersonators working at Disney World and Disneyland for Jack Sparrow. And funny story actually, there was a story covered by outside of Disney, of course, that a lot of these Jack Sparrow impersonators have women in the theme parks, sneaking them their phone numbers. So very un-Disney, but it's funny to see that happening. And I wonder what's going on with the Gaston meet and greets in the new Fantasyland at Disney World, if he's having the same situation with the ladies, and also what would happen maybe with Thor. So anyway, who's going to play Chris Hemsworth? Well, I wager that Chris Hemsworth is going to continue to play the God of Thunder. Is he going to fly to Disneyland or sit there in the park and greet everybody? No, I think they're going to do what they've been doing in Disney World at the Jack Sparrow, the Legend of Jack Sparrow experience. I got to go on this in February, and it's basically a walkthrough, but it's a very good walkthrough, and they're really basically taking technology, what they can do these days, and using it to create a really excellent theme park attraction. So the way it is you go into a room and it's set up like a movie set, like Pirates of the Caribbean, and they have a ship like the Black Pearl or some kind of ship has crashed into the banks, and so you're standing in front of it. And then they have some kind of projection screen that's almost see-through, and they're able to project on it, and they have Johnny Depp. And he filmed this interactive experience with the audience, and he did a very good job. I was impressed with how game he was to do something like this. A lot of actors might be like, there's a rumor going around that Chris Evans did not want to do the voice for Captain America for the toys because he said, it's not in my contract, unless you pay me extra, I don't want to do it. So somebody else actually had to do that voice. Which I thought was kind of a jerky thing to do, Chris Evans. But, it's great that Johnny Depp is like, you know what, I have a lot of money and my career invested in Jack Sparrow, I want to make sure it's done right. So he filmed this whole interactive thing, and they projected it on top of this ship, and it looked real. It looked like Johnny Depp was actually in the room with you. It was very impressive. I don't exactly know how they exactly pulled it off, but I loved it. So I think that's what I think they're going to do with Thor: The Dark World. And also everyone, I'm sure, is hoping that Loki will show up as well. I mean, the whole cast can show up if you're going to film it and just run it on a loop. But if you're going to be in Disneyland when this goes live, I highly recommend that you go and check it out. Find out if that's what they are indeed doing. I think it's a lot of fun. I mean, of course, who would not like to have their picture taken with a Thor approximation? But I think that might be harder to pull off than Jack Sparrow. But as I keep saying, there should be a Thor Asgard breakfast or dinner, probably dinner so they can serve mead at the Norway Pavilion in Epcot. I feel it's such a shoo-in, it's so easy. I mean, it's going to get a little crowded, that pavilion, with Frozen coming out. I think that's going to be where they stick that stuff because that takes place in a Norway-type area. Arendelle, I believe, the Kingdom of Arendelle is like Norway, basically. But, there's room for both Frozen and Thor at the Norway Pavilion, and I really want to be able to throw cups on the floor with Thor and his friends. It's like a no-brainer to me, and it drives me crazy that this has not been done yet. So maybe if we all write in or tweet them, it'll work. So anyway, that's the first story. The second story is that Joss Whedon has apparently, there's a big cover story coming out in Entertainment Weekly about Avengers Age of Ultron. As you know, the story broke, I covered it yesterday, that Saoirse Ronan turned down the Scarlet Witch role. He's going to Elizabeth Olsen, and also he's starting to film in early 2014. So I think it's so funny that we're already kind of in Age of Ultron, Avengers 2, spoiler territory. We're already in that zone. I was just talking yesterday about how movies are covered so far in advance, and this movie doesn't come out till 2015, but because it's going to start filming, and Joss Whedon knows how to play the game, they're already talking about it. It's already in people's consciousness. So get ready for about a year and a half of Avengers Age of Ultron. So anyway, apparently he's going to talk. They gave a little bit of a teaser, and Joss Whedon's talking about why he picked Ultron to be the villain, and he says, "I love the emotion behind Ultron. I love that he's so angry. He said that's why I liked the Hulk, and that's why I'm excited about Ultron, because I really want to go into the human aspects of the character, and then he feels betrayed by the Avengers. Very Shakespearean. He didn't say Shakespearean. I'm sticking it in there. Joss, it's a good hot word. Use it." And then also the other thing I thought was interesting, he said that I want to counter the science aspects of Ultron with magic, and that's why I have the Scarlet Witch in. And it's clear that he keeps bringing up the Scarlet Witch, and she is obviously integral to his plans for Age of Ultron, Avengers 2. I just think and I continue to be shocked that Saoirse Ronan would turn such a role down. But also I hope that Joss casts it correctly if she's going to be so crucial. So we'll see. I think it'll be interesting. I do like Ultron. I do like the science aspects. Anything that can bring science bros to the forefront, I'm all for it. But so we're Avengers 2 already in the headlines, and it's not an accident. Joss Whedon is intentionally putting it there. All right, so that's the second story. The third story is that as you might have heard, Steven Spielberg dropped out of American Sniper. American Sniper is another true tragic story about a real-life sniper in the military who had the most kills, and then ironically and tragically, when he came back to America, he was teaching someone to shoot on a shooting range, and that person shot him. Living a life of killing people as a sniper and then dying by a bullet as well. It's very cinematic, and I think it's an interesting story that deserves to be told. It's based on a book that this guy also wrote before he was killed. This real-life sniper. Bradley Cooper is producing and attached to star. So Steven Spielberg drops out. But I think they have a better replacement, because the word yesterday is that Clint Eastwood is going to come in and take over. Clint Eastwood has a very bleak color palette, but I also think he excels at these tragic tales and real-life tales, Mystic River, $1 Million Baby. And he also, for Bradley Cooper, he has an excellent track record, Eastwood, of getting his talent Oscars. At least Oscar nominations, potentially all the way through. So I feel, very good news for Bradley Cooper. I think, he got on the playing board with Silver Linings Playbook. He got a nomination. Now he's considered kind of in that pool. The interesting thing is once you get a nomination, every role that you play afterwards suddenly becomes in consideration, because, they're like, oh, we liked you. Let's see what you're doing next. And I think Bradley Cooper is playing that game very smart. Poor DiCaprio. He just cannot win an Oscar. Or even be in the discussion, really. It's such a shame. But anyway, I think that Clint Eastwood is an excellent choice for this. He's doing Jersey Boys first, Clint Eastwood musical. That'll be funny. But I do feel that he's an excellent choice for this film. The only question is, you have Lone Survivor coming out later this year from Peter Berg, that Mark Wahlberg film, also about Navy SEALs, as you guys pointed out. And that is going to try and be an Oscar contender. I don't really see that I don't think that's going to be an Oscar contender. I feel bad for Peter Berg. I know it's a passion project for him, but based on the cast and the way it looks, it just doesn't have the artistry that's going to take a military story to that audience. It's a game. It's really a game. You have to understand your Academy voter, and I know that the Academy is trying to switch up who is in the Academy. They invited a lot of different types of people last year, but I still, we've yet to, we can't count on that having actually made any change. We have to wait and see. But I think it's going to be a slow turn. It's like turning a ship. I think the Academy has turned the wheel, but we're still only making our first movements to turning this thing around to have a more diverse voting group in the Academy in terms of not only race but gender and also age group. So we'll see. All right. So to answer a question, Stephen Barnhouse says, I was wondering, what do you think of Darren Aronofsky and the fact that he's doing Noah's Ark with Russell Crowe as Noah, and also that Ridley Scott is directing a Moses movie called Exodus with Christian Bale, and so what do you think of Hollywood trying to bring these big biblical epics to the big screen? Well, Stephen, Hollywood has been doing this for a very long time. Of course, there's the famous Ten Commandments movie with Charlton Heston that plays on your television screen every Easter. And then also, of course, there's the really famous film Passion of the Christ Mel Gibson did, which was just a phenomenon. It's one of the most successful movies of all time. It was just, I remember still seeing that movie to this day. It was like going to church. The emotion that, the emotion and the visceral feelings that Mel Gibson was able to elicit, even though I was very young, were really impressive. And it just really struck a chord with me. I felt for the first time that I really understood what Jesus went through and why he did it. I think that Mel Gibson, it's as I always say, it's a shame what Mel Gibson did personally, because I think it overshadows a great filmmaker. He's just if you haven't seen Passion of the Christ, I don't know if you're going to get the same thing out of it, not going in to see it in the theater, but it's a fantastic film. However, what leads me to my point here is that the reason I think Passion of the Christ worked is that Mel Gibson believed so inherently in the subject matter. He is a very religious person, something I think to some degree hurt him, with some of the statements he made. But, he really believes in the Christianity, and this was a story that he felt needed to be told. And I think that passion for Christ is what made the film so successful, that he really, as an artist, believed in what he was doing. So if these movies that are being made, Noah and Exodus, are just cash grabs, it's not going to work, especially because they have to compete with previous work from Hollywood that's quite good in terms of religion. But also recently, as you might have seen, there was the Bible miniseries on the History Channel, which was a huge hit. One of the most, I think at the time it was the most watched cable show ever. And also, I think 100 million people saw it by the time it was done in terms of reruns and airing on the History Channel, which is just amazing. The History Channel, by the way, it's really fascinating to see these non-narrative cable channels move into scripted work and really do a phenomenal job. Even also Netflix as well. And so, network television is just really taking a beating. But anyway, I am curious about Noah's Ark. I'm curious about Exodus. I think those are obviously two very talented filmmakers. But I think that if they're approaching it from a business standpoint purely, and also an atheist standpoint, where they're like, well, you know what, I'm going to tell the real story because I don't believe in the religious aspects of these stories. There's always there's a very fascinating discussion of, archaeologists discovered that there was a huge flood at the time the Bible was written or something that, of course, didn't cover the whole earth, but would have seemed that way to the people at the time who didn't have like a global vision because, lack of technology and such. So to them, it would seem like it was the wrath of God. And people have said that is where the Noah's Ark story comes from. So that's very interesting, and that's fascinating. But, I think that the reason that these other films have done so well, like the Ten Commandments and Passion of the Christ and, the Bible miniseries, is because they are respectful of religion. They do take it seriously, and they treat it as such. So we're going to have to see, without seeing trailers, knowing anything about these projects, we'll see how it goes. We'll see if Hollywood continues to cover religion like they always have, if there'll be a change, if audiences will accept that change. But the short answer is that religion and entertainment have always gone hand in hand. It's very powerful. It's a powerful way to bring religion to life. And I think even sometimes when it's not your religion, it's interesting and fascinating to see how, where that religion is coming from and why it means so much to the people that do believe in it. So I'm all for it. I'm curious to see what these movies are going to be like. I did like Passion of the Christ. I like Ten Commandments. I didn't watch the Bible miniseries. I actually did not. I tuned in. I thought it was okay. It wasn't as good as the Hatfields and McCoys in my impression. So that's my thoughts. That's morning movie news today. Some interesting and delicate topics. So and I hope you discuss them down below. And please write any other questions you might have for me and anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow. All right. Bye.